Hi there, everyone.
Hi.
Let's see, let's turn you up. There we go. Look, it's a dog. And hi, Julie.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Are you north or south?
I am. I've got my fleece on.
Okay, you're north.
I've come out of the dark.
Hello.
Hi there.
And
Welcome.
Glad to be welcome. Nice to hear you, Bob.
Oh,
Hi,
you're
Julie.
welcome.
Barbara.
Hi, Lynn.
Nancy. Got
We
a
have,
haircut.
we
And
have
Dana.
we have
And Dana.
refreshments at the back of the room, Lynn.
Oh, come on. I just ate my blueberries and yogurt. I can't indulge. I'd like to though.
I don't know, blueberries and yogurt sound pretty good to me.
Yep. Yep. The breakfast treat for dinner.
right.
Oh, good. Allison's here. The financial wizard.
Peter, I'm not even go downstairs. I'll go upstairs. Go.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi, how are you all?
Very well. How about yourself, Deborah?
Fine.
Good.
Let's see, can I count on my fingers here? We've got me, Barbara, Julie, Peter, 4. Dana, 5. Deborah, wow, 6. So we definitely have a quorum. And Allison, welcome.
Dana, I can wave at you across the street.
Oh, you're at Valley Road School.
I am. Do you recognize the ceiling?
I recognize the lights.
Yeah. Yeah, Julie's home base.
That's
Yeah.
right.
You know, my kind of fond memory of the Valley Road School is we did a tour of Valley Road School before it was renovated. And I remember going into the upstairs classroom, the one that looks out sort of over the harbor.
Mhm.
And there was a little newspaper clipping, not paper clipped, whatever, thumbtacked to the window frame that was dated like 1950 something or other. And it was a clipping from the Boston Globe that showed all the marine traffic that was going to be going into or out of the harbor on that day.
Wow.
And I remember thinking that was probably the last day that anybody was in this classroom. And was kind of part of their thing, was they would watch the ship traffic coming in and out of the harbor.
Well, it's so funny because I'm in that classroom overlooking the harbor and the wharf. And I do spend a lot of time looking at what's out there. That's fun. That's fun. Well, we're very, very happy to be part of the group of people who are part of the tenants of this space. So it's very nice.
All right, so I guess we need to do this officially. So it is now what, 7:03. We have a quorum present from the Finance Committee is Bob Vanderslice, Barbara Beatty, Julie Tarmy, Deborah Warren, Peter Barba, Dana Sheehan, and let's see, a number of guests, Allison and Paul Spurn, of course, Lynn Spencer and Nancy Catalmo. That's all that I see, but we certainly have a quorum of the Finance Committee here, so the Finance Committee meeting is in order. I guess we do have minutes. Barbara, you sent minutes, yes?
I did.
So do we have did everyone get a chance to look them over?
Yes,
Do we have a motion to approve or to adjust?
I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from April 4th.
Okay, a second?
Warren,
Okay, so we have all in favor? So Vanderslice, aye.
Katie, I.
Barbara, aye.
Lauren, I.
Who did we miss? Dana,
abstain.
Sheehan abstain as well. I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to read them. I was reading the CPC articles.
okay. All right, well, I think that's still a majority in favor, so minutes are approved. That is really the only administrative kind of thing I'm aware of. So I'm just going to turn the floor over to the CPC and to the liaisons and,
Oh, wait, Bob, before you do that,
okay.
did you send us?
I did not send it yet. No, it will be
Okay.
coming either later tonight or tomorrow. But
Okay.
yes, it's coming.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Bob. Am I ready?
I don't know if you're ready, but you're certainly
Come on.
welcome.
So I really appreciate being here tonight with the FinCom, and I'm very fortunate to be joined by Paul Spurn, who serves as the clerk of our committee, and Nancy Catalmo, who represents the Open Space Committee on our committee. I don't know if others may be attending, but we all have been very busy over the last month and a half, maybe 2 months. We meet on Mondays, and we've been successful, I think, in actually making our recommendations and drafting our articles, maybe even a little bit in advance of the deadline, which is very exciting. And for that, I credit my committee because everybody has pitched in. And that's been wonderful. Just as a reminder, so I am fortunate to chair community preservation. I've mentioned Paul Spurn, who is an at-large member, our clerk, Nancy Katamo, who is the open space representative. But we also are joined by Austin Antrim, who is an at-large member, Ellen Goldberg, at-large, who is also our finance person. Dave Wilson is new to us this year, representing housing. And help me, group, I don't have my list in front of me. Who am I missing?
You'd mentioned Nancy.
I did mention Nancy. So I think that's it.
I think that's everybody.
Jimmy
We-
Dolan,
Yeah,
Oh,
Jimmy
yes,
Dolan.
Jimmy
Yes,
Dolan's
that's
new.
right. He's a new member who is also at large. I do want to just take a moment to recognize the passing of a valued member of our committee, who is Ellen Steves, who had for many years been on our committee. She represented the Conservation Commission. We are missing 2 slots on our committee, one a representative from the Conservation Commission to replace Ellen, who is irreplaceable. And also we're looking for a nomination from the Planning Board, because Mariana Maximovich, who had been in that slot for some years, retired last year. But anyway, that's enough of that. I sent out earlier today our spreadsheet as well as the draft articles. And I wonder, Bob, since you are the primary on this, if you could put the spreadsheet on the screen, or is that something?
I can, or I can make you a presenter.
You could do that, but it would be risky.
Well, I can put it up for you if you want.
Okay, Paul, you can put it up. I did make a couple copy edits today, Paul, but nothing of substance.
All right, well, let's see if this works. Did it go?
When?
Yep.
Yay,
Yes,
perfect.
What do you know?
good work.
So this is a format that we've been using for the last couple of years, where we log our applications as they're received. we indicate the project, the applicant, the project, the CPA category, historic preservation, open space / recreation, or community housing. The grant request, any match involved, total project cost, and then in red this time round, our recommendations. And then other sort of items on this page, have to do with the source of match, the quality of it, the application, any special notes, and so on. Paul, if you could just roll down towards the bottom,
Okay.
I will help the FinCom understand just how much money we have to spend and where it comes from. Okay. Thank you. So FinCom members and town meeting members are familiar with this, but I'll just quickly say that we actually get an estimate of the 3% surcharge from Sheila and Allison, and then we calculate the state match. And in the past, we've been seeing a strong 70% on average. So we use that this year as our match, which resulted in $391,000 being our projected amount for grant making out of fiscal year 23. The Community Preservation Coalition has been sending out regular reports, and there is a feeling, in fact, that the state match will be higher than that. But this seems like a prudent approach. If it is higher, then Allison just tucks it into our general reserve. And that is the next item on this. We do have an accumulated general reserve of $266,494. And then we also have a housing accumulated reserve of $35,649. So as you remember, 10% of that $391,000 needs to be allocated at minimum in 3 different areas: open space recreation, community housing, and historic preservation. So in the case of this year, we actually do have a cause for applying the housing reserve. So that is part of the calculus of how much money we have to grant, which is potentially $693,143. Okay. As you'll read up above, we have made recommendations. We actually had initially over $2 million worth of requests. Of that, $1.1 million was a grant application by the town administration and the Board of Selectmen related to 9 Little Nahant Road. That application has been withdrawn. So that sort of diminished the accumulated request by a fairly large degree. But I'm going to go through the applications and then we'll see how it actually totaled down at the bottom. And I will do this quickly because some of you have looked at this already. So if we just start at the top.
Here we are. Yeah,
here we go.
That's where we are.
That's where we are. So our first grant application received was from the Nahant Historical Society, not surprisingly, always on the ball. And they had come in with a request in the historic preservation category for document conservation and digitalization of what are called the town logs. Our approach this year was so they had requested $41,450. In the spirit of actually sharing the fun, we decided this year to assign grant applications to committee members for deeper investigation. And Austin Antrim was the investigator on this one. He had conversations with our curator and director, Julie Tarmy. And as a result of those conversations, it was decided to divide this grant application into 2 parts. So this year, we're recommending $18,464 for the document conservation. Uh, And by the way, interrupt me with questions. I'm good for that. Um, The next application was from the Nahant Preservation Trust for the replication based on the originals of the boat, the two pairs of boat room doors that face Short Beach itself. Those doors get a real battering. One set of doors is from 1900, the originals. The other set of doors were a replication from about 20 years ago, which sadly have deteriorated actually almost faster than the original doors from 1900. I think that's due to the fact that we do get rough weather there, but also they were done in pine. And the new doors will be manufactured in mahogany, which has a better chance when properly maintained of durability. The request is for $64,000, which is being matched by the trust for $16,000, resulting in an $80,000 project. The cost for this, as the costs were based on a contractor's estimate, and there is some contingency to take into account potential structural issues related to the hanging of these very, very heavy doors. Let's see, the next application. Gosh, Paul, why don't I let you take this one?
Okay.
Since you
Dana,
already
did you
wrote-
have a question for Lynn?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the doors for a minute.
Oh, sure, sorry.
So Lynn, you mentioned that, well, first let me say that I was in the boat room last night. We had a Legion meeting there.
Yeah.
And I can certainly attest that the doors need work.
Yeah.
And you can see it on the inside of the doors and the outside, and they are warped. And the hardware though is intact. And so, I don't know what the whole cost is going to be, but the one thing you said was there are two sets of doors. But in
Mhm.
fact, there are three sets of doors in there. Are we only
Right.
doing two sets?
Yes, we're only doing the two sets of doors facing Short Beach.
And what would you estimate the contingency be in this estimate?
There's a contingency, I believe it's $12,000.
So it could be, it's anywhere from 80 less than 12,000
Yeah.
in that range.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your endorsement of the need of the project, Dana. So I'm going to let Paul Spurn, who was the investigator of the village church, to present this one.
Right. So the village church in 2019 embarked on a program to design interior and exterior access for all, universal access for disabled as well as fully able visitors. And the interior project is the more considerable one. And they are in process of raising money and have been successful in getting grants or promises from contributors. But they are nowhere near the figure that they need. So instead, they decided to embark on the exterior part of the plan. And for those of you who are familiar with the church, church has two main entrances on the street. One to the main sanctuary building, which is not on grade. It has a central pathway and then a step up to the landing, and then a step up from the landing to the threshold. And then down the street, there is a second entrance to the connector between the chapel and the main building. And that's a little different. there is a grade issue there, but not as severe. And once again, there's only a central walkway. So they have got very careful plans. They know exactly what they're going to do. They've gotten cost estimates from their professional designers. They don't have contractors as yet signed up, but there's a 20% contingency in the funds that they are requesting. The project, total project cost will be $50,000. They're asking for 40, and they're matching with 10. A little more detail about what they're going to do. It's quite an elegant plan that they have. Somebody has some noise in the background. Okay. They are going to, with regard to the main sanctuary entrance, they are going to make it all on grade from the sidewalk to the landing to the threshold by increasing the slope. That slope for the center pathway is too steep for wheelchairs. So they have to add 2 additional semicircular pathways, one on each side, that take a longer route, a more gentle slope, and can be negotiated by a wheelchair. And the very lovely thing about that is that that is the original design from 18 whatever, documented by photographs, so that when they go about that restoration, they are not only abiding by the rubric of making a historic property more functional and thereby helping to preserve it, but they are also restoring it to its original lovely condition.
Quick question. What's the surface of the ramp? It's not aluminum, I assume.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. There's no ramp. These are in-ground paths. And they are planning on using a concrete mix, but I think they're going to review other options depending on what's presented to them by the contractor that they choose. Any of which I think would abide by the requirements for the historic quality of it, since cement was the original material, but there are other materials I'm sure that would satisfy. Any questions?
Yes, I have one, Paul.
Yeah, sure, Dana.
What are there any restrictions in the Community Preservation Act about using the money for church buildings? It certainly has historic value. Don't take this
Yeah.
as opposition, but I'm just curious about the Community Preservation Act and how it relates.
Right. I go into that in great detail in the, excuse me, in our warrant for this particular project. And we discussed that at the very beginning of our deliberations. And the answer is given very explicitly on several websites maintained by this Community Preservation Coalition. There have been now more than 36 projects in the history of the CPA that have given, in most cases, much more substantial grants to religious, to churches. I don't know if they've gone to mosques and synagogues as yet, but they've certainly gone the church route. And the justification for it is not only within the act, but it has been upheld by the courts. There were 2 actions that were brought by citizens who questioned this. And the justification is that this is money that is used for the preservation of historic structures that serve an active public purpose by being sites for meetings, and concerts and lectures and programs for the elderly and et cetera, et cetera. So we were sensitive to that. I'm glad you asked about it. And we're quite comfortable with that. But we're going the extra mile. It's one of the longer paragraphs in our in our warrant, so that the public at town meeting, if they've read it, I hope will be satisfied. And of course, we're more than willing to stand up and speak for it at the meeting.
So, yeah, Paul, I read the article and I did see the piece, and I expect somebody's gonna probably ask about this at the town meeting.
Yeah, and I think they should. Lynn, maybe it was me who asked the question
Yep.
when we started our discussions.
So, well,
You
thanks
know?
for explaining to me, though. I just wanted it summarized. Appreciate
No,
it.
you got it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, the basic rule is so long as it doesn't actually fund liturgical parts of the building, or does it, actually contribute to the religious services themselves.
Right.
So, and for those of you who have been to the Friday breakfast with various speakers, you all know that place can get crowded with lots of people wanting to participate in and get in within the building. So,
Okay.
Paul, you did such a great job with that. Would you like to do the next one, which
Yeah,
was
sure.
also yours?
Right. So what we title the Johnson School Heritage Trail Enhancement was promoted by the principal of the school, and town hall got behind him. And their original plan was to take the Heritage Trail segment that runs between Flash Road, along the ball fields and playgrounds, past the Johnson School, and just to lay a pathway of some sort. And the goal, they thought that would satisfy the goal of providing a safe pathway for kids to take the shortcut from Flash Road to the school. It would serve as a place for townspeople to walk and jog, and would also be a route that would have educational purpose to it by planting gardens and other plantings where kids could learn about natural species, pollinator, insects, et cetera. And the objectives of the proposal stood out to us. We thought it was a great idea, but the initial plan lacked what we thought was reliable design and a route that was something less than optimal. It intersected the driveway that runs behind the school that actually is quite busy with cars wending their way to the parking lot, and it ran very close to the DPW lot. The drainage there was bad. So the long and the short of it is that when we told them that they could apply instead for a planning grant and get professional help to design a pathway that satisfied the goals, and constructed something that would be easy to maintain, safe to use, and viable over the long term, they were very happy to do that. So that is what is being planned. The pathway's been adjusted a bit to move away from the DPW lot and instead to go closer to the back of the golf course, wending its way around the ball fields, and then avoiding entirely any intersection with that driveway, winding up instead at the community gardens. So this is a grant that is, excuse me, they are, the initial grant request was $10,000. And then when they were told that they could submit for a planning grant, they tried to get them both. They tried to get both the planning grant and the construction. And we told them instead that we would be happier to do this in 2 stages. Get us a good plan, and then we'll talk about funds for construction in another fiscal year. And they were happy with that because with a good plan in hand, they should be able to raise a lot more money than just for the notion of coming up with this heritage trail enhancement. So even though the grant request was for $40,000, we're not being stingy here. What I think we've done is we've helped them to reconfigure their request with greater chance of success. The details of this stage are a excuse me, a $12,000 project. That total project cost figure column we should amend, Lynn.
Yeah.
And $1,000 in match.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions?
Yes, please. This is Dan again. So would that plan, after it's done, be helpful in getting grants from other sources for this trail?
I'm sure it would, but I can't say I'm an expert on that. We haven't really discussed the nitty gritty.
So I can just chime in here since it's part of the open space sort of Nahant, and the open space plan is ready to be discussed with the town and will be submitted in a couple of months. And in fact, next Monday is a community meeting to which everyone is invited to discuss the goals and objectives. But certainly once the plan is funded, is approved by the state, then this as open space becomes eligible for lots of other kinds of funding and granting that is only given to towns that have an approved open space plan. So
That's great.
That's terrific. Thank you.
So I-
That's great.
Dana,
just-
if you're done, okay,
just to
you have
add-
more
So let me
questions?
just follow up on that for one moment. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. Peter, I'll just be a minute, but
Yeah, that's fine.
I think it makes sense that we encourage the Johnson School and who's leading this to go for those grants and use the expertise of the Open Space Committee and the Community Preservation Committee to access those grants.
I agree.
Great.
That's all I had to say. Thanks.
So, being on the Coast Guard Housing Committee, this, I guess, change in, or the possible change in directions will not change as it gets up to passing through what is now the Coast Guard housing property, correct?
Yes, this, they never intended to go into the Coast Guard site. And
Okay.
that hasn't changed.
Because we did, as part of town meeting last year, we did designate or essentially keep a 15-foot wide strip.
Yes, I
to-
remember.
Yeah, so just want to make sure that, because that, I think, the town administrator is finalizing, some of those details.
Peter, is that route laid out or is that just a concept?
No, well, since we voted on it at town meeting, we now have to keep a 15-foot wide path. as far as where that path is, I mean, there is a set of stairs, you know, constructed from, I guess it would be, I think it's actually, you know, the wooded area behind that property. And there's a set of stairs that lead you onto the grass of the Coast Guard property. So that's going to be at least the starting point of the trail. And I think it
Okay.
just, you know, there may be a slight adjustment in angle
Yeah.
so that both sides of the trail, both house lots of the trail, you know, meet zoning bylaws.
Right, okay. Well, by changing the route of the designated heritage trail in this area, they're gonna have to negotiate with open space about this and deal, you know, get their approval.
Yep.
And so they're the ones, I guess, who should make sure that these two match up with each other.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I am hoping that when the trail with the study is planned, that there will be given consideration for ADA, disability, handicap access, so that, because I think it's very important that any town community trail be accessible. So I hope.
I can tell you from having walked this, and Lynn has walked it as well, is that it's a gentle grade all around.
Yeah.
And there are no steps in this portion.
But it's still-
Except when you get to the portion that Peter was just describing, and then
Yes,
there's
that's
a set of steps. And that then goes through the military housing section and joins up with the path up to the top of the bunker at Bailey's Hill.
I'm just
So-
saying that it will be important when the study's done, that that be one of the parameters of the study, because sometimes there can be issues with grading, you know, that
Yeah.
it's, et cetera. So I just
Right.
want to make sure that that's highlighted.
Yeah.
As,
I think it's a good point. Thank you.
thank you.
Paul, thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay, so the next one actually is highlighted as withdrawn. This was the 9 Little Nahant Road application. This is a complicated situation. I think this will be a further discussion by the Board of Selectmen and ultimately perhaps the town meeting. I won't go into the details on it other than to say it will be before us again in some form or another. And we appreciate the efforts that Tony Barletta in particular have done in attending our meetings and helping us understand the complications and nuances associated with this. We also had considerable public interest in it as well. Happy it's withdrawn for now. The next one, oops.
Yep.
What kind of
I think we
exciting
get
thing
back to
just
that.
happened? Okay.
There we go.
Next on the list.
So, hey,
is-
Lynn, before you go on,
Yes.
with 9 Little Nahant Road,
Mhm.
how do I even ask this question? So are there still funds remaining that could be utilized for that project should it come to that?
Well, I can take us down to the bottom of the chart if you want to, and we can quickly answer that because that is part of the limitation. We are recommending a net of $578,333 of grant making. You're seeing a little bit of a credit from clawbacks that are shown here. But if you look, Paul, can you just scan further down?
Sure.
If you then go down to the bottom line of what we have available, when we make these grants, we will have a net available of about $115,000. We certainly did have discussions about what it would mean to make a contribution towards the 9 Little Nahant Road potential acquisition and potential rehabilitation for one way or the other. But part of the thing that challenged us was what the potential uses of this site might be. And having toured the building along with Dave Wilson from our committee and Austin Antrim, and I'm pleased to see that he's joined us tonight with members of the town administration, I can say that there's a considerable amount of work to be done on this building in the historic preservation category. There was also a lot of local discussion about from nearby residents about their views on the future of this property. To say that it's been neglected is an understatement, and that's about all I can say. So our ability to do anything meaningful, Bob, is constrained by the funds we have available.
Yep, that was exactly the question. Yeah.
Just it. So if
Okay,
it
now,
goes
I-
someplace, it has to have other funding sources.
So okay, so I guess maybe my second question is a little bit moot, but it moot only to the tune of $115,000. What is your committee's ability to react on short notice? Do your grants have to come from an annual town meeting, or could they be through some other mechanism, perhaps a special town meeting?
I believe that a special town meeting would be a legitimate action. I have attended on behalf of my clients, special town meetings for community preservation funding. So it certainly has precedent.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
I think Dana has a
Oh,
question.
Dane has his hand up.
Thank you, thank you. So the property is for sale now. I drove by it. I noticed there's a for sale sign. How would that affect something coming up down the line in terms of the town getting involved with ownership?
Okay, so now we're going to get into the complications. The property is actually now owned by HUD. There may be a for sale sign, but their intention is to put it up for auction. And the difficulty is that the auction date has not been decided or announced by HUD. And so it's unclear, and they seem to be very difficult to communicate with. So it's not being offered for general sale. It will be offered at an auction.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So shall we go back to the chart, Paul?
Yep.
Okay, next is item labeled number 6. This was the town of Nahant's application for the preparation of a housing production plan. And I suppose it's actually, fortuitous or in a way that this follows the 9 Little Nahant Road application, although withdrawn. So this is really designed to follow the guidelines that are set out by the state for analyzing the housing needs and housing capabilities within the town. Part of, and I think, Pete, you're very aware of this, we are missing a housing production plan, and that has bearing on potential sort of both potential projects, both serving community needs as well as possibly jumping over the gate of what's called the 40B development, which enables a developer to develop on a property with minimum zoning and zoning requirements. So a housing production plan will both guide the town in making sensible decisions about meeting housing needs for young families, for veterans, for over 55, as well as actually protecting the various special pieces of property on Nahant from what might be considered adverse development. I wish Tony were here to correct me. I'm sure he's thinking about, I'm sure he'll listen to what I just said, but I hope I've characterized it correctly. Pete, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, it weighed into the Coast Guard Housing Committee's, it weighed into our decision. You know, we did some research into 40B. There was actually a previous committee member, Mr. Easton, I think, who did a kind of did research on 40B and kind of wrote a little summary so that the average person can understand 40B. But not having this plan really weighed heavily on our decision to move in certain directions. So it's definitely something we should have. We should have had it, you know, many years ago. And I think, you know, I think we all understand that, you know, Nahant is an aging community, and because of that, you know, we probably suffer, you know, we lack the housing for our aging community, myself included. I live in a 4-bedroom house, and my kids are all, you know, finishing up college and out on their own, and I'd like to downsize. And unfortunately, especially with today's crazy housing market, that's difficult. So yeah, I think this is a really important important thing to have for the town.
Thank you, Pete. Any other questions? This is a healthy grant application. This is a $75,000 study. It's a lot of work. It will include a substantial amount of community involvement. And we judge this to be both a pressing need and a reasonable request.
So I have a question. Could you summarize again what this is again, a housing production plan? And second part of the question is, do we have anything now? Does the town have any housing plan now that could dust off and update for this plan?
The answer is no. There's no existing housing production plan. As Pete said, it would have been helpful, and I've served on those committees as well. It would have been helpful to have that. This plan is actually the process and the requirements for this plan are based on the state statute. So it's I'm not really well equipped to give you all the details on exactly the elements of this study. I simply know that it's going to follow the guidelines of the state statute, and that therefore will actually both serve as a planning tool and as a means of, as a proper planning tool. I'll leave it with that.
And Lynn, where does the 75,000 come from? Is that an
That was
estimate?
the town of Nahant's estimate for the services based on their research, based on the state requirements.
Okay. And how long do you think it would take for this plan to be created and approved, go through the channels?
I cannot give you the specifics on that. I know there's going to have to be an RFP for services, so that will take some time. I would imagine that we are looking at, well over a year between the procurement as well as the community, as well as the analysis and the community process.
And would this be on the critical path in front of other projects for the town, such as the Coast Guard housing?
Again, I'm not in a position to give you an answer on that. I think that that's properly in the domain of the town administration and the Board of Selectmen. But I think this grant, as well as encouragement from committees like yours and ours, will certainly be heard by them.
Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome. Next is the town of Nahant's application. And I'm going to change the label on this. I actually changed it on my chart, but this should be Town Hall, Assembly Hall, acoustical and lighting improvements. And
Yeah, I changed it
Austin-
on mine too. I don't know how this got resurrected.
Yeah, old things. But I'd like to ask Austin if he's prepared to talk about this, since he was the investigator on this.
Sure. Hello, everybody. So this grant application comes from Town of Nahant. They hired 2 contractors in preparation for this application. One conducted a study of the sound quality in the assembly hall at Town Hall, and basically determined it's all hard surfaces. So their recommendation was to, well, they had a number of recommendations, but among them was adding some soft surfaces. One being a historically accurate stage curtain being returned to the space, which will be 2 large panels. And then also window curtains over the, I believe, 12 windows in that space. And those curtains will act to, they have specific recommendations on the weight and density and material. It'll act as sort of a sound absorbing material. So there's less echo in the space. I believe that represents about $15,000 of this $100,000 request. Among the other recommendations were adding sort of soundboards up in the, in some other areas. The town's going to sort of move forward with the curtains portion first and see how that improves the space before adding the other sound absorbent material, which is less historic. They also had recommendations on the sound system itself that is not an appropriate sound system for speech and microphones. And the town administrator believes he can achieve those improvements within funds that he has somewhere else. The remaining portion of this grant funding or request it addresses the lighting in the space. You're probably aware of the grant project that was just completed to change out lighting in all the town buildings to LED lights. That was also completed in Town Hall with the exception of this space. So the contractor provided recommendations to change out 8 light fixtures in that space to historically appropriate light fixtures. The ones that are currently in there, I believe, were installed, Lynn can correct me if I'm wrong, but approximately 1940 or so.
Yeah.
The new historically accurate light fixtures will be LED. They'll improve the light quality in the space and be energy efficient. And there was sort of a range of cost associated with that. The town administrator was comfortable with approximately $75,000 for design, purchase, and installation of the lighting. So that is the total of $100,000 that the committee has recommended funding for this project.
I would just like to add a word or two. First, I want to just clarify that there were consultants that were hired. So there was an acoustical consultant as well as a lighting consultant. But secondly, I just feel like those of us who have been in meetings with the Board of Selectmen, as well as town meetings and various committee meetings, will all understand that the acoustics as well as the lighting in Town Hall really deserve improvement. And if we think about universal access, the theory of everyone should be able to see and read and hear and understand, this is certainly part of an improvement to Town Hall that we feel is justified and falls under the category of historic preservation, in part because we're restoring the stage curtain as well as using historically appropriate lighting fixtures. So are there any questions on this one? Okay. Right, so the next one is the continuing story of addressing deferred maintenance needs at town-owned historic properties. In this case, we're looking at a request from the town administration for a work at the town hall itself on the exterior envelope, as well as the entry arch to the Green Lawn Cemetery. And if Dave Wilson was able to be with us tonight, he would remind us that there are pieces of mortar and stone occasionally hitting the ground from that cemetery arch. So this is an urgent need. Both the needs for the public library, the town hall, and the Green Lawn Cemetery walls and chapel were evaluated approximately 6 years ago with a comprehensive envelope and structural analysis. And progress has been made on the public library. You'll see work starting very soon on the exterior envelope, continuing the work on that building. There have been various improvements at Town Hall, but there's more that's needed. And the same thing is true of the chapel and Green Lawn. You know, we just keep pushing at it. The town has obtained actual bids for the work for the town hall from the contractor who's also engaged on the public library. That's Homer Construction. So we have pretty reliable costing associated with this. The request is for $350,000 because of our financial situation. We're recommending that this be treated as a 10-year bond. And what is showing here as $54,950 would be year one of that 10-year bond. Thank you, Allison, for providing that information. So that would be a draw on this year because in fact that work is soon to be underway. Any questions? Okay. Our next application, I'm going to turn this over to Nancy, who was the primary on this one, but this is the town of Nahant again, now applying for the
Wait a minute,
playground.
I'm sorry, I was very slow in getting myself off of mute. So,
Oh dear, I'm sorry.
yeah. It's no,
And
don't-
I'm just rolling this through, Bob.
No, I know you're doing what you should be doing. Do you anticipate or did you receive anything from the library? When we went with them, they were discussing, they've got a bunch of needs and their intent was to do it through, I want to say like non-town funds, but I don't have, that's not the right word, through,
Private.
yeah, not non-general fund expenditures, meaning at least portions of it through CPC.
Well, as you're going to see in a moment, we are potentially carrying 3 bonds, 2 of which are for the library that were previously taken in the last 2 years. So I think it's going to be a strain. I mean, we were questioned, as you well know, last year when we actually looked at what it meant to look at a long-term bond for the East Point property. So I think it's going to be, it's challenging, but it's not impossible, but it's challenging. When we tie things up in bonds, we tie up our flexibility and capability.
Understood. Okay. All right, keep rolling then.
Okay, Nancy, you're on. Playgrounds, fun.
Okay, so the open space community survey clearly represented people of Nahant saying they wanted money spent on open space, particularly playgrounds. And I think everyone who interfaces with the playgrounds realizes that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The DPW has done a great job maintaining and replacing things as they have been able to, but in reality, there hasn't been a lot of major work since 2004, when an effort came between the town with CPC funding and the Swing With Me group, a very strong community group, did a lot of major rehabilitation of the playgrounds. Last year at the town meeting, the CPC was granted $24,000 for work on the Little Nahant Short Beach playground. And this was actually for one piece of equipment. So playground work involves a lot of money. It's really expensive. The town came to us with asking for $100,000 for work on fixing up 6 playgrounds. That included 3 at Johnson School, the Little Nahant playground, over and above the 24,000, which they have not yet spent, Pleasant Street and Flash Road. We obviously had to look at all these grants and try to come up with realistic amounts of money that we could offer, but also, as you've heard in a couple of other grants, are advocating planning for these things ahead of time to better carry out the needs. So we, the town asked for 100,000. They came back with specific work that needed to be done at all these playgrounds with something over about 140,000. And they were hoping to like raise the difference with community involvement. So we wanted to focus on the Little Nahant playground because it is the one that's in the worst shape. It takes the hit from the ocean of Short Beach, and we couldn't really do a lot of work on there until the FEMA work to do dune restoration had happened. That the town seems to think that it's far enough along that we now can turn our attention to working on that playground. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. A lot of equipment had to be removed because it was in such bad shape. And there has to be ground structural work to happen. They went ahead, Tony went ahead and had a community meeting with the people in that area about the playground, and he was enthusiastically received, and they want to partner with the town to raise money and also donate their time, which would help in installation, et cetera, et cetera. So we thought that we would like to offer $40,000 specifically targeted to the Little Nahant Short Beach playground, in addition to the 24 that they haven't spent to do that on the worst playground in town at the moment, and then offer them $20,000 for planning work on the other 5 playgrounds. And all of this would be very much with the encouragement that private funds, community involvement be a part of this endeavor.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. Love to hear your questions and comments.
So I was part of the Swing With Me group. I was involved in the building of those playgrounds. I don't quite understand the 20,000 in planning. I mean, they're playgrounds. I certainly understand the need for a great improvement in Little Nahant playground because it theoretically almost doesn't exist, but I don't understand the planning part of it. As I recall, when Swing With Me put together all of the planning for the playgrounds, when we went out and built them, they were well planned out. So I'm just wondering about the planning.
So one of the recommendations of that Swing With Me group was that Pleasant Street be a kind of a tot lot, Flash Road be 6 to 12, and Short Beach be kind of all ages. So one planning thing would be working with the community to decide what they want in these various places. I believe that like everything else, playground equipment has risen astronomically in terms of how much it costs. Like I said, this one structure is going to be $24,000. That's one piece. So Tony explains it as you have to have a certain area that you mark off, and then you decide what legally, safely, and including universal access, et cetera, could fit in that space. Then you work with the recreation company that would help decide what could fit there, and then people working on that that kind of plan. And there are, like I said, there are 6, different playgrounds, five other ones. And so we just thought that rather than the great job that the DPW has been doing of in piecemeal, trying to make things better as they exist, that looking at what playground equipment has come of age since these major things were done in 2004, and working with the group that Tony works with to help with the equipment and the neighborhoods, that altogether it would cost some amount in planning.
Okay. I don't remember that part of it, but I, can't say that I was that involved at the onset. But I mean, it sounds to me.
I understand it may not be like that much, and I know it sounds like a lot, but if
Oh, no, I'm looking at it the other way. I'm not, I'm questioning the actual 20,000 for planning. It sounded to me that earlier somebody said that the town estimated they had a need of $140,000 to fix our playgrounds and, renovate or rehab the Little Nahant playground. And, the town is giving them 60. And I just question, when you look at the bottom lines down at the bottom, you have a general reserve fund of 266,000 plus, and you said there's another 155,000 that you're not going to be spending. I think that's how I understood it when we talked about the earlier article. I just feel that over the years, the equipment that we put in was almost 20 years, almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago. I know when we bought it, it was very expensive. It was probably top of the line equipment, and I just feel that we should put more focus on these playgrounds and give them more money. So just my comment.
I think, thank you, Peter. I think that's what we want to do. We simply want to have a plan that has been actually thought out and is responsive to both the nature of the playground itself and community needs, because it is a substantial investment.
Right. And I do know that, Aaron and Chuck DeGrande headed up that organization back, back in the early 2000s. And I do know that they did a lot of planning, community feedback and things like that. And that's why those playgrounds were laid out the way they were.
Exactly. And if they want to come back and do that, it'd be great.
Yeah.
I saw her the other day and told her that, you've got a chance, Aaron, come back.
Yeah, they got college graduations happening, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate. It was a very wonderful example of community involvement with sweat equity as well as donations, and we were able to match it with CPA funds, and it was a very good experience. We hope the same thing will be true here.
And for anybody listening that is contemplating like joining a new group or whatever, I will tell you it was a blast. We had, in fact, there's a lot of people I met, new families and new people, and I'm still friends with them because of those, days we did construction. So it's definitely a worthwhile thing to do, and again, it's a lot of fun. So
okay, good. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, let's go on to the next one. Another opportunity for community participation. Nancy, here you go again.
Okay, so we all know that the Twin Peaks of Bailey's Hill are vastly overgrown with invasives and need some work. Last year, the town voted to give 41,000 to work on a portion of the Bailey's Hill section that included Fort Ruckman, Tri-Mountain area. That some work has begun again with DPW effort, and that money has not yet been spent, but plans are underway to do that work. So the town came with asking for originally for $50,000 to do work on Bailey's Hill, but it was rather unspecified and we didn't quite know what they wanted. So they most recently have come back with a plan that would involve now the other section, the section of Bailey's Hill that projects into the water, that hill, with very specific plans for removal of invasives, for reconstruction of various paths along the way that need work, for removal of some native species like staghorn sumac, but to keep it in balance. And it was a pretty comprehensive look that was done with the town and the DPW for this other hill. So we agreed with that. Again, both plans only dealt with removal of invasives, and further work has to happen once all that's done, either physically or chemically or however it's supposed to be, in terms of rehabilitation of what's left after we've trimmed the trees and removed the invasives. So there is, like many of these other plans, another section for the future, but we are supporting the town's request to work on that section of Bailey's Hill for 25,000.
Thanks, Nancy. Any questions or comments? Okay. Well, the next one is somewhat related to this kind of concept. And this one was for the Lodge Park and Memorial Point portion of East Point, the land that is actually owned by the town. A group had actually formed, an ad hoc group had formed to say, couldn't we do something about analysis and planning up there? They worked with the town administration to come up with this request, which is a grant request for $4,500 that is being matched by $3,000 provided by SWIM for a total project cost of $7,500. They have actually researched firms that would be involved on this. I think this will actually be subject to endorsement both through the town, through its procurement program. But this would actually set guidelines and standards for the treatment of the Lodge Park Memorial Point area. And I think this also relates, Nancy, to open space and the master planning that is now, that they are soon to present.
Yeah, and I just again want to credit the DPW and Zach Taylor for doing a really lot of wonderful work up there already.
Yeah.
And so we're working closely with them to continue this, and moving forward also into the rehabilitation and maintenance plan. For example, there's a meadow up there, which is a very threatened kind of environment that people have been working on maintaining with mowings at certain points and stuff. And we just want to make a solid plan that everyone would know what's going to happen to that piece and how to maintain it, so we don't have to keep coming back and asking for money to take out invasive. So.
Okay. All right, any questions on this one? I know, the evening draws on. So then we're almost finished, really. The next one is from the town of Nahant for the flagpole in front of the town hall. Austin, would you like to take this one on and just give a little bit of historical background on this one? Because it's pretty fascinating.
Sure. I don't know if I fully remember the history of the flagpole, but it dates back at least, to town hall itself, if I'm correct. So it's over 100 years old.
That's right.
I believe it was brought up here from, I don't know, maybe Maryland or something
I
like
know
that.
a little bit, like
There
in
we go. Thank you. Saved me.
1912, a
Help,
ship
help.
mast was brought to Nahant, and it was an oak mast from the naval yard near Philadelphia, and it had to be brought by sea. So it sounds like it was quite an incredible event. Then this was six years ago. It was rehabbed for $20,000, and now they're coming back again. So Austin, you can.
Thank you very much, Nancy. In 2015, community preservation funds were used to address, it actually had a fair amount of rot beginning in some upper portions of it. So that was addressed, and then the flagpole was painted. So now some work needs to be done again. We've recommended $7,500 to address rehabilitating some of the damage that's occurring to the wood, and then the town will come up with some funds to maintain it and paint it.
Okay, well done. All right, any questions or comments?
Yes, Austin, this is Dana. And this is a question out of left field or outside the box, as it were. But what would it cost to just replace the flagpole with an aluminum flagpole? Or would that be sacrilegious to the historical needs of the flagpole of the town? I don't know.
Totally. Totally, Dana. Dana, one might suggest they hang you from it.
Thank you,
I'm shocked
Peter.
by that.
No, I just, I'm sorry, Dana. I just didn't mean to
If the
put you out
flagpole is
there.
current condition, it would be quite safe to try to hang him from it. It would-
We need to fix it first. So just a question. So if I'm not mistaken, the ask is for more than 7,500, correct?
Right.
The ask is 25,000.
Right.
And
the majority of that cost was to paint it because of hiring, the necessary equipment to suspend somebody up there.
Yeah,
I think
and
it was like $1,000 a day rental when it was done last time.
Maybe we can
Yeah.
have Dana to paint it.
and I assume I know Dana's trying to be I guess kind of practical with a long-term solution, obviously, but yeah, it is a historical pole, and I think it's really cool.
Right.
I assume that the town has the rest of the money to be able to put together a long-term plan or whatever. Do we need to bring in somebody to give us that long-term plan?
Tony had some ideas. If you look at where the flagpole has worn and where the paint's come off and where the wood damage is, it's from the clips on the halyard that connect to the flag itself. As it's blowing around, it's sort of primarily located when it's in the upper position and then at half staff. I mean, there's wearing of the paint all along, but the wood damages in those locations. So he had some interesting thoughts, and I think he's discussing that with other people on ways to mitigate that, either changing out to different clips or putting some sort of sleeve or other protective device on the pole in those
Yeah.
areas where the damages cause the most. And Dana, I don't know what the cost of a replacement aluminum flagpole would be.
It's about 40,000, but I know this pole has a lot of life left in it. But my question is more like, all right, it keeps coming up, and maybe we do need a longer term solution.
Yeah, that's my question is how far does this 25,000 take us? I mean, when are we going to come back and be looking for more?
I think the idea is, our recommendation is only 7,500 to address the wood. And then if the town can, on a regular basis, maintain the paint and come up with a solution to minimize that wearing of the wood from the connections to the flag itself. And hopefully this won't be a recurring application.
Right.
Except it should be maintained. So
Yes.
the word maintain is an important word for us because that is a prohibited cost under community preservation. So, what Austin is recommending is that there are wood repairs that need to be done on this, that will be done with wood Dutchmans or epoxy repairs. But the painting really is a maintenance issue. And it's something that should be programmed on a, recurring basis, unfortunately. Any of us who have paint know that. Yes, Alice?
Is a paint job included though in that 25,000?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
So the
and
last
when-
time this was done, actually, I arranged for Steeplejack to work on this. Actually, I'm working with him now. So actually, you were there, Austin. He rigged it and set up a bosun's chair and, did the work at the top. But I think Austin's raised a very important point. If we can avoid damage to the flagpole because of the mechanism of the flag and the lanyards, I think that will be a huge improvement. And that's being proposed by the town out of their monies. All right. Anyone else? So the next two are both related to borrowing articles that have been approved in the past. Last year, a $500,000 bond, 10-year bond was approved for the Nahant Public Library. So this would be a payment from our funds towards that 10-year bond. And this would be year one of it. Thank you, Ellison. And then number two is a bond that was taken 2 years ago, or actually 3 years ago, but actually only implemented 2 years ago, a year ago. And this will be year two of that bond, which is $51,695. So these are obligations that have already been approved by town meeting, but they are drawn from CPA funds. Allison, do you have anything to add on this?
Nope, not on the bond payments, no.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
you do want to highlight, these are being paid out of the reserve, correct?
Yes. Yes, when I get back into the articles, I need to actually clarify that, the source of where those funds are going to be. Thank you for the reminder. Paul, do you mind advancing this? Thank you. So I do want to remind everyone that the town meeting last year did approve a $1.5 million bond, 20 years for East Point for the conservation restriction activity. That whole situation is now in various forums. I think there's 6 different court cases involved with the East Point situation right now. So that has not been, no action has been incurred on that bond. And indeed, the 1.5 million is the last of the funding sources that are available for this. $3 million has already been pledged and deposited with the town of Nahant. So if you're nodding, Allison, you're affirming that exists. But again, no activity on this, but this is one of the governors, if you will, on CPA, evaluate on the evaluation of CPA projects, as we look at what we have already obligated ourselves
So
with.
Are you keeping a reserve for that when it does? kick in?
Well, if it does hit, I have $115,000 towards that $109,000 pull. So,
Okay.
yeah. But that then gets us dangerously close to the end of this. The last article for us is a $10,000 administrative fund. This funds our community coalition dues. And in this past year, it funded the consultants that helped the town administrator put together the grant application for the assembly hall at Town Hall. So we offer these funds for planning purposes, for the ability to actually prepare good, solid grant applications. And that then resulted in a subtotal of $592,109. I have identified, thanks to Allison, who provides me with the eye-crossing worksheets that I work with her, but we've identified $13,775.55 of clawbacks. They are laid out in the articles that were provided to you earlier. I don't think I need to sort of go one by one unless you really want me to. You really want me to?
You don't want.
No,
to.
we don't.
Take my
No,
word.
exactly. We're done.
We read it.
Good. Okay, so that gets us to an adjusted draw of $578,333. And it leaves us approximately $115,000 in our reserve. Now, we do expect a higher than 70% match from the state, but we don't count on it. If it comes in, it goes into that general reserve. And that's our presentation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lynn and Paul and Nancy and Austin. Much appreciated.
Well, yeah,
Thank
well
you.
done.
Yeah, really thoughtful, detailed, excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it was,
There-
each meeting, it was very thoughtful and did their best to look at all angles of all of these applications. I really appreciated being at those meetings.
Well,
Thank you for attending the meetings, Julie. It was nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
Lynn, did you say that you've drafted the articles for this already and you circulated that to the finance committee?
Mhm.
Would you mind sharing that with me as well?
Absolutely.
That's the last piece that we need for the warrant. And so Tony's actually presenting tonight to the Board of Selectmen, almost final warrant. It's just missing the CPC articles. So I wanted to kind of pull that all together for him.
Okay, I'll forward them to you next.
Thank you.
And just a word, they're in an order, they can be reorganized for an order that makes sense to you. What each of us actually drafted articles this year, and Ellen Goldberg sort of assembled them. She's not provided any, italics or anything fancy stuff that oftentimes happens. So you and I can look at that together and we can reorganize these, I think, in a way that probably follows the format that I've got right here, quite honestly.
So there are no internal dependencies on these, nor are there any of these that would be dependent on other articles.
I don't believe so.
I don't think so. I didn't see any. Okay, good.
We know that Tony is still working on the housing plan that he needs to consult with the attorneys about exactly the wording of it and look at, some of the questions that we were asked tonight, exactly what does this mean and stuff. So that one, I believe, is not quite written in full.
Thank you, Nancy. That's a great point. So Tony has sent an email out on that, Allison. I'll forward that to you as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so, and Lynn, historically, CPC has had a report that is included in the Finance Committee booklet.
Isn't that a wonderful idea? Yeah, it's one of the favorite craft activities that we all do.
I know you're just itching to get at it.
I can't wait, Bob. Cannot wait.
I'm sorry, my job right now is to be like the nudge here.
Well, you did a good job. So, yeah. I
And-
thought I had until August, or excuse me,
No, not
April.
August. Not August.
I thought I had till April 12th.
Yeah, oh no, we don't need it immediately, but I just want to be sure it's on the radar. And I want to be sure that we all kind of understand the logistics of how it's going to be. I don't know who you're going to give it to. Allison, do you want to just have them drop it in that Dropbox, or how do you want to handle this?
Or by email is fine too, whatever's easiest.
I emailed it to Allison last year and it was the best.
Yeah,
Fine, that works.
That works. So I will do that again this year.
Okay.
Allison, I will need some help with that last chart, which you and I can go over.
sure. Yep.
Yeah.
No problem.
But I have to say, it does provide a running record of all of the work that we've done now since 2004. So there's some value here.
Yeah, you should like publish a compilation.
Yeah, okay.
Greatest hits.
Great, exactly.
Yeah, greatest. Well,
Motion
that
to
way we
adjourn.
know exactly when Come Swing With Me was involved, and we know when the flagpole was done the last time. And yeah, we know these things because of these records.
Is it appropriate for a motion to adjourn?
Well, before we adjourn, I'd like to thank everyone for not using the joke, run it up the flagpole during the flagpole.
It was up to you to do it.
Oh,
And we do need open forum too.
Yeah, we do have to have a public forum. I don't know who is here.
I also have just a brief update. Yeah, so Tony is at the Board of Selectmen meeting tonight. That's why he's not here, but he is presenting a number of budget adjustments for the selectmen to approve. And he had touched on this at the last meeting, I believe. He spoke about how in a previous version, we were proposing to fund the COA kitchen with free cash, but now that's going to be funded through state funding. And then another thing that has changed is that amount for the public safety feasibility study. We originally had budgeted 500,000 for phase 1 and 2. We've now decided to go forward with just phase 1, which has brought it down to 125,000. So that's freed up some free cash. And so what Tony has decided to do is allocate that free cash to a couple of different capital accounts within the omnibus to get a few more capital projects done. He can go into further detail of those, but because of that, it has changed. I've had to adjust all of the spreadsheets that are part of your book, which I have done. I wanted to wait until the selectmen voted on it tonight. And then tomorrow I was going to put in your Dropbox an updated workbook in all of the different updated schedules that reflect these changes.
Good, thank you. All right, so just some administrative stuff. We are to meet next Monday would be our next meeting. Allison, could you and Tony be available and ready to do general government and benefits on Monday?
Yes. Yep, we can do that. We actually already met with Deborah and Dan in regards to benefits and insurance too. So,
Perfect.
yep, we're ready.
Okay, so that's what we're gonna do on Monday. So I think we haven't heard anything, any comments, questions from the public. So who was it? Was it Dana's motion?
Yeah, it was me.
All right, I think you're in
I'll
order.
second it. I'll second it.
Call the question.
Yeah, all right, so all in favor?
Katie,
Barbara,
aye.
aye.
McMacken, aye.
Lauren, I.
Army, I.
She and I.
All right, so we are adjourned, and again, thank you, Lynn, and the whole rest of the CPC.
Okay,
Now, Lynn,
thank you.
Have a great night.
You guys are
Thank you.
terrific.
Thank you.
That's a lot.
Absolutely terrific.
Thank you. It's a lot of work. We
Thank you
appreciate
for the work you do. Goodness.
Yep.
My goodness.
Indeed.
Thank you very much.
it. Okay. Good night.
Cheers.
Now, Lynn, by the way, I'm just going to say this. I hope some of you watched the Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
it was very good. Thank you.
Awesome.
It was awesome. It was outstanding. Really.
Yeah. It was great.
For those of you who are interested, not just interested in history, for anybody, I had no idea that he really just did so much. I
He was a
mean,
polymath.
oh,
All he had to do was get out of Boston and he blossomed.
That's right.
exactly.
You went to Philadelphia like you did.
Right, like we did.
Right. And then, of course, a little bit in England and a lot in France.
Yeah, right.
Oh, very good.
The
Yeah.
French part was really wonderful. Wow. The whole thing was. Anyway, I'm just saying.
Thank you, Barbara.
Recommended.
It's a great recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good
Night.
night, all.